Okay, good morning. Good morning to all. I think we can start. So I'm wishing you very welcome to our webinar on promoting decent work in the horticulture sector in Senegal. My name is Francisca van Dusseldorp. I work with CNV Internationaal as the Regional Coordinator Africa on our program. And we have conducted a study in Senegal on the horticulture sector, and we would very much like to share our findings with you this morning. So what we will do is I will first have a short introduction on CNV, who we are and what we do, and then we will dive into the research findings with Remco Rensma, who together with Nafifu did the study for us in Senegal. Then after that, around 50 minutes from now, we will have our Q&A session, so you'll be able to ask your questions, share also your own insights, and we will round up with letting you know about our next steps by my colleague Marjolein. Okay, so let me first introduce a little bit about CNV Internationaal. So please, next slide. Yes, our program at a glance. CNV Internationaal is a trade union from the Netherlands who has an international program in multiple countries in the world. Yes. And we intervene in Latin America, Africa, and Asia, and already over 55 years. And our main goal is really to improve decent work. So our agenda is all about decent work and fair work. To do that, we have chosen some value chains that we are working in. And you see on the screen, we have interventions in textile, especially in Asia, palm oil in Asia, and mining, especially in Latin America, sugarcane. The cashew and the horticulture are specific for Africa, not only Africa, but also for our program in Africa. So our program, which is called the Trade Union Cooperation Program, TUCP, which is financed by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have 4 main result areas. First of all, social dialogue as a main objective and tool to work for improving decent work. Then we have international responsible business conduct, where we work also in certain value chains. And we are looking at youth employment and gender equality. So actually, CNV Internationaal also has evolved. And now we're really looking also to diversify our partners and our financing to promote decent work. As for our Africa program, the main financing is the Trade Union Co-financing program, which I told you about, and also other activities with trade unions from the Netherlands who team up with trade unions on a specific sector in one of the African countries. So what about the value chains in our Africa program? So as part of the combination program, Aid and Trade from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands, we have chosen the mining, especially in South Africa, the cashew for Ivory Coast, and then the horticulture in Senegal. Yes, Siegfried, we can share the slides afterwards. We will do that. So what about our collaboration in Senegal? We have been together with a trade union partner in Senegal since 1997. So that's quite a long time, with UDTS, Union Démocratique des Travailleurs du Sénégal. And there we do work on all the 4 result areas: the social dialogue activities, responsible business conduct, youth employment, and gender. The type of activities that we do together, it can be research on collective agreements in a certain sector, or research on the value chain of horticulture, for example, we did now. It can also be training with trade union partners. We have had an extensive leadership training program in the past. We also have conducted training last year on human rights due diligence in value chains. We can provide technical support, and we have done a gender audit, participative gender audit with our trade union partners also in Senegal. Furthermore, we assist specific women and youth committees in trade union and also provide training for women and youth committees. We co-finance some activities in the action plan of the trade union, and also we team up in lobby and advocacy on important topics in Senegal. To have a few examples of accomplishments or things that we have worked on together with UDTS. Of course, the first one is increase in the minimum wage and also the minimum agricultural wage, which has been raised in 2023. That is really about lobby and advocacy. We also have assisted UDTS in the creation of social dialogue committees in companies. So meaning that employers and employees have installed a form of social dialogue amongst them to be able to discuss working conditions. Another example is focal points for the promotion of corporate social responsibilities in enterprises, and there are some examples there. We also have for our women empowerment program, especially for the informal sector, to assist in transformation into the formal sector. And as regarding to violence at work and gender-based violence, to assist women in a legal and psychological manner. And for youth, I can mention the University Outreach Program together with ITUC Africa, the International Trade Union Africa, on informing youth on their labor rights before they enter the labor market. Marjolein? Yes, I would like to ask my colleague Marjolein, she's our Program Officer Africa, to also give an example of a collaboration between a company and a trade union.
Yes, good morning to you all. I would like to share an experience of a collaboration between a company and trade unions in Nicaragua in the sugarcane sector. We've been working now for about 6 years in the sugarcane sector in Central America. A very, very interesting example of this collaboration is the setting up of mixed committees in sugarcane companies in Nicaragua. There is, well, in order to have a better control about regarding safety and security at the workplace, the companies, the three of the four sugarcane companies in Nicaragua have decided to install these mixed committees, which means that there is a selection of staff from the company and a selection of workers who form committees, and every 3 months they carry out together an inspection of about the safety and security implementation in the factory and in the fields. In this way, they get to learn more about risks, and they have improved their protocol about safety and security at the workplace. And also workers are sensitized about safety risks. So this, it has been proven, it's a very positive step forwards of cooperation between the company and the workers. Thank you, Marjolein.
Thank you, Marjolein. Yes, so back to horticulture. So why would you choose to investigate horticulture sector in Senegal? Well, there's a multitude of reasons. First of all, the significance of the workforce in Senegal, the number of people who are working and providing a livelihood for themselves in horticulture is quite extensive. Also, the fact that it's largely informal economy. which is a complicated context, to be honest, when we regarding labor rights. But I think it's time, also for CNV Internationaal to be able to intervene and have good strategy how to deal with informal economy and actually help improve decent work conditions. The importance of the sector for employment opportunity in Senegal, especially also for the youth, is present in the horticulture. Also, private sector and government are interested in further developing this sector. And we have the presence of national and international corporations, especially interesting because of the Corporate Sustainable Due Diligence Directive of the European Union and the Human Rights Due Diligence expertise that CNV could provide together with partners. And also not to mention lately, because the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands has chosen horticulture as a specific sector in Senegal to assist developing economic development in Senegal for a lot of people. So we thought before choosing any actions or before looking at where we can add value in the horticulture chain regarding to decent work, we're looking at kind of a baseline study that could inspire us and inform us on what kind of activities CNV Internationaal, together with trade union partners in Senegal, could add into this horticulture value chain in Senegal. So we asked Marco Rensma of Mais and Nafifou Sall in Senegal to conduct a study for us. Well, we are happy that they can present the findings today. So I will give the floor to Marco. You will have the floor right now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Francisca. Good morning to all. Good to see so many people participating in this webinar. I see 25 people. So that means for everybody, it's a really important topic. Also, for us, it's really interesting to show the result of our research. So my name is Marco Rensma. I'm owner of Mais Emerging Market Research. We are a international research company for more than about 15 years now. We do a lot of research in North Africa and West Africa, primarily in Senegal, where we always work with our local partners. In Senegal is that Jean Boissy of Nafifou. He has a lifelong experience in Senegal and a wide network, which is very convenient for doing this type of research. As Francisca said, we did a qualitative research about decent work in the horticulture value chain in Senegal. And by my knowledge, I think it's the first time this type of research is done in Senegal. So what we did with our research is that first we tried to set up, say, a baseline of what is currently done around decent work in the horticultural sector in Senegal. So our context of our qualitative research, which we have done during the last couple of months in Senegal, is that Senegal has dedicated itself in going for food security, 100%, meaning no imports. So they want to have full food sovereignty, which is at the moment not applicable, especially not in horticulture. Many products are imported because of food losses, which doesn't cover domestic demand. So approximately the agriculture production in Senegal is around 3.4 million tons. That means cereals and fruit and vegetables, of which about 1.5 million tons comes from fruit and vegetables, which is an enormous increase from 15 years ago. So in that sense, Senegal made huge efforts last 15 years in increasing production. Around 90,000 households are currently active in the horticultural sector. providing 100,000 of employment to not only family members, but also to non-family members, which they hire on a temporary or a permanent basis. And vast majority of these farms and enterprises working in the horticulture sector are informal. That means they have no registration whatsoever, either in the trade register or in the fiscal or tax register. So in that sense, nobody knows exactly how many households are operating in the horticulture sector in Senegal. Only they can do it by counting during every 10 years a population census. So these numbers are based on the last population census of 2023. So the average size of horticulture farm plot in Senegal is less than 5 hectares, which is quite small. And this is a situation which hasn't changed during the last 20, 30 years. Of course, there are bigger farms, but less than 2% are farms that have a plot size of more than 5 hectares. To promote and implement decent work across the horticulture sector, Senegalese government embraced the decent work agenda of the International Labour Organization, the ILO. And ILO defined decent work, which is important to understand, as productive work for women and men in conditions of freedom, equity, security, and human dignity. So since 2012, the Senegalese government is promoting decent work through decent work promotion program. They have, during the last 12 years, they had 2 programs. First run from 2012 to 2016. The first time there's really government action on promoting decent work across the entire sector, informal, economic sector, informal, and then in the formal sector. And the problem they had with this first program is there were no clear and measurable criteria written down, and therefore they couldn't also measure the results of this first decent work promotion program. And secondly, it was not really strongly connected to already ongoing national initiatives like the PSA, the Plan Senegal Emergent, in which Senegal is promoting itself to become a modern economy by 2035. So it was more or less a standalone program between 2012 and 2016, which didn't give the result the government wanted to on decent work. So based on lessons learned from this first decent work program, they designed a second program, which ran from 2018 to 2022, with 2 priorities. And one was promoting creation of decent work for men and women. And second priority was strengthening and extending social protection in the formal and informal sector, not only horticulture, but the entire economy. At the moment, so this ran to 2002. At the moment, results of this second program are not yet known. But based on our qualitative research, we think there is still a lot of efforts to be done to improve decent work, especially in the horticulture value chain. So what is the current legal framework for decent work in Senegal? Well, there already is a National Labour Code in 1997, which is applicable to all employees across every sector of the economy. This one. Secondly, there is a legal minimum wage, as Francisco already mentioned. And for the agriculture sector, it's called the SMAG, SMAG. And the non-agriculture sector called the SMEIG, the SMIG. And they in 2023, they increased it to an hourly rate for the non-agriculture sector of around 370 franc, or just over 50 euro cents per hour, or a monthly rate of around 98 euros for a 40-hour maximum working week. And in the agriculture sector, it's around 236 franc per hour, or 36 euro cents And with a maximum number of working hours set at more than 2,000 hours per year, because there are no maximum weekly hours mentioned, also not in the labor code, because it depends on the horticultural season. So more or less, you're not allowed to work more than these 2,352 hours per year in the agricultural sector. But how many hours you work during the harvest or during the planting season, that is not given on a legal basis. The social protection of workers, as regulated by the Labor Code, falls on the oversight of the Ministry of Labor. They have 3 institutions, primarily national institutions. The first one is Social Security Fund. CSS is tasked with overseeing family benefits, prevention and compensation of workplace accidents and occupational diseases. Senegalese Retirement Institution, IPRES, especially retirement, disability, and death. And Health Insurance Institution, IPM. And for coverage of a portion of the medical expenses incurred by employees and their families in Senegal. So the focus of our research was on the horticulture value chain, which is a very dense and extensive value chain. We have a lot of actors operating it. So from the input of, for example, seeds and fertilizers to domestic demand and foreign demand to export. And in each part of these part of the horticultural value chain, many actors are operating. So on the input side, we have seed supplies, fertilizer, irrigation, etc. On the production side, we have a wide variety of farmers, as mentioned before. The vast majority, around 98%, are small-scale farmers, and the rest is large-scale farmers. Small scale is less than 2 hectares. That's for 10 hectares. Then we have post-harvest activities, for example, like cold rooms, a storage facility. In Senegal, is one of the main issues in this horticultural value chain is the lack of cold rooms and storage facilities, which result in massive food losses. Approximately between 10% and 70% of food produced is lost. Will never arrive to consumer, which is a major issue, especially because caused by lack of cold rooms and storage. So many of the farmers, but also traders, cannot store their products. Then we have the processing and packaging actors, local food industry, but they're also operating for the export to, for example, to Europe, especially in mango, in which they export fresh, but also dried mango, green beans, important product, and cashew nuts. Then we have the marketing channels and logistics, so it means traders. Most of the farmers deliver their goods not directly to the consumer or the market themselves, but they sell to traders. All small traders, called the banabana or coxeur, these are interim traders. They go to the farm, buy the product, and bring it to the market. Either they sell it to wholesalers, retailers, some will do it to consumers, but primarily to wholesalers. There are also, of course, transport companies working in Senegal in the vertical value chain to transport the goods from the farm to the markets. Then domestic demand consists of local consumers, retailers, wholesalers, and there's a small increase in the size of the supermarkets, especially in the large cities like Dakar and Thiès. But still, there are a very small portion of what is bought by them from farmers, from local farmers. And for export, we have big farms who export directly by themselves, but many will work with the local agent or distributor to sell abroad. It could be in a neighboring country like Guinea-Bissau, or even Mali or Mauritania, but also primarily to Europe and Asia. So there are 2 types of horticultural producers in the horticultural value chain in Senegal. We have individual exploitation or by collective. So we have these small farms, what I mentioned already, less than 5 hectares, about 85%. We have medium-sized farms from 5 to 20 hectares, 13%, and large farms for more than 20 hectares, in which there are several really large farms ranging from 300 to 500 hectares. But there's a really small part of it that's only 2%. And then we have a collective. That could be either a cooperative or economic interest group, or AG. These are independent farmers. They work primarily smallholders who work together to get economies of scale. Then we have the traders and the farm input supplies. They are primarily SMEs, very small companies with maximum of around 20, 25 employees, also functioning in general in the informal sector, meaning they have lack for registration at the commercial register or the tax register. And the farm input supplies are, for example, inputs of fertilizer and seed, which are primarily produced locally or imported abroad from especially Europe. So what are the objectives of our qualitative research? So the primary aim of this research was to get an analysis of the horticulture value chain in Senegal, to see where interventions can be done on promoting decent work within this horticulture value chain. And as the horticulture value is quite broad, we narrowed it down to 5 subsectors, which are onion, tomato, green bean, mango, and the cashew nut subsector. And this selection was done in those days with various stakeholders doing an online meeting in June. And we looked at several criteria in terms of volume, production volume, and employment, and the significance for the export to the Netherlands. The findings of our qualitative research can also assist CNV in selecting local participants to promote and implement decent work in these 5 horticultural subsectors. I'm not sure if you can see the table, but these are a table of all the main fruit and vegetable produced in Senegal during the last 6 years. So we selected onion, industrial tomato, green bean, mango, and cashew nut. As I said before, based on the criteria of ability to sustainability create quality employment, also be sustainable in relation to the fluctuation overall demand, presence of domestic international cooperation, and significance of the workforce. And together these 5 sectors count for about 40% of horticultural production in Senegal. Provide 100,000 of employment, especially in rural areas. So which type of methodology we choose for the qualitative research? So we had investigated several main players, main actors in the horticultural value chain. These are the farm input suppliers, the farmers, both small scale and large scale, the traders, the trading companies, some exporting companies, and also we investigate importing companies who do import directly from Senegal, especially horticultural products like green bean or mango. For the type of methodology we choose, also interviewing individual workers. So not only the owner employers of these companies, but also workers active in the horticulture value chain. We approached workers at small farms and large farms who were active at that moment. And we gathered the information, our data, during the period of June to September, which was a challenging period for our field team because of the rain season. So many companies are closed or are lower inactive. But at the end of the day, we selected a lot, and we think a representative group of people for our research. We did interview face-to-face with the reporter, and we administered by the interviewers a questionnaire. So each actor get his own questionnaire. So we developed 5 questionnaires for these 5 different actors in horticulture value chain. For selection, we did a non-random self-selection sampling method. As mentioned before, because the horticulture sector is operating in an informal economy, nobody knows exactly how many companies are there. So at the end of the day, you have to do a non-random sampling. Also, what we did is we focus on 3 horticultural zones, which are the major zones: horticulture production in Senegal, this is Senegal River Valley in the north; Niayes, which is along the coastline between Dakar and Saint Louis; and the Castle Mines in the south. So you can see again the geographical context of the study. So in the north we have around Saint Louis in the Senegal River Valley. Then we have around Chess in the southern part of the Niayes, and around Senegal in the south of the Castle Mines. Oh, yeah. So these are the number of respondents. So at the end of the day, we had 883 participants in our research, of which more than 880 were in Senegal. Primarily, we interviewed farmers, meaning the owner of farm plots, in the 3 different zones, over 250. We interviewed 18 companies supplying input to these farmers, more than 100 traders active in these 3 different regions. And for the workers, we interviewed 374 individual workers working at small farms and trading companies, and another 127 workers working at these several large farms and agro-processing units in the north near Saint Louis, and in the south in the Castle Mines near Senegal. A little bit of a spoiler. So we had 2 main outcomes of the qualitative research. First one is that these work conditions in the 5 horticultural subsectors, and so onion, cashew nut, mango, beans, and tomato, are nearly non-existent, with the exception of a handful of large producers and traders. The second one is that union membership among workers in 5 horticultural subsectors is limited, with the exception again of a few large farms and exporters. We had a little bit more membership, but especially in smaller companies and farm plots, they're almost not there. We also provide some quotes from individual workers working at these different type of organizations, small farms, big farms, and the trading companies, to give you a little idea what we get back from them as well. So we did more than only asking closed questions. Also, we asked them their opinion about these work conditions. And as we will show you in the other slides, in general, they are not there, these work conditions. So if you look at the key participants in the 5 subsectors, what we get back from them. So the farm input supply, so these are the owners we interviewed. So the majority are SMEs, with very focus on smaller ones, small companies, often with less than 20-25 people. 80% of these companies are registered in the commercial register, and possesses are an INEA, called a fiscal number, which is mandatory. However, more than half are not enrolled in social security funds, which is also again mandatory. It's part of the labor code, but they are not there. Most supplies are directed to farmers. These are their primary customers, because it's a seasonal sector. These companies, besides the fact that they are seasonal, are still hiring permanent employees, meaning family and non-family members, which is for us a little bit of a surprise, because we thought they would follow a little bit the seasons like their main customers, having more people during the planting season, less maybe during harvest. But that's not the case. They hire more permanent and temporary workers. About 50% of these companies offer written labor contracts, and the rest not. So half of their staff, half of the workers at these input supplies do not have a contract at all. So they can be fired at any moment, at the day or the week. They have no security whatsoever. The majority of employees do not provide any social benefits to the employees. So when an employee gets sick or there's an accident, whatever, the employees don't provide anything. It's up to the family of the employee to help this person. Most companies encounter a little difficulty in recruiting new employees. So beside the fact that they don't offer a labor contract and they don't offer any social benefits, the owner said we don't find any problems in recruiting and recruiting new employees. For training companies, who we ask, including several of them were exporting. The majority of the owners consist of middle-aged men with limited educational attainment. 3/4 of these companies are sole proprietorships, so one-person companies. A little bit over half are registered in the commercial register and possess a fiscal number in INEA. That means the other half is operating in informal economy with no control whatsoever, no check from the government, nothing. They can do what they want to if they are employees because there's no check. That's why also 80% are not registered with social security funds, which should be mandatory if you are economically active in Senegal. But 80% is not registered. 60% of these trading companies have a maximum turnover of 5 million franc, around 7,600 euros. 2/3 utilize both permanent and temporary or seasonal employees. So they have a very mixed staff, mixed labor force of permanent and temporary workers. And this has to do, of course, with the fact that the sector itself is seasonal. So when there's a harvest season coming on, they need more people to work and to go to the field and buy the products on the farms. And where there's a planting season, of course, there's a little bit less work for them. So that's why they have a mixed labor force of permanent and temporary or seasonal employees. 75% of employees pay their temporary seasonal work below the legal minimum wage. That's a lot. Well, 1/3 extend this practice to permanent employees as well. So the vast majority of employers pay a wage below the legal minimum wage, which is euros 56 cents per hour. 90% of the employees do not provide written labor contracts to the employees. The same with the input supplies. No written labor contracts means they're hired orally and they can be fired very easily. There's no social security whatsoever. In addition to food and beverages, most employers do not provide coverage for transportation, medical care, housing, energy, or training expense for the employees. So if something happened to the employee or he wants to develop his knowledge, he has to pay from himself or from family members. 4 out of 5 employers do not provide paid leave, public holidays, do not offer a weekly day off, nor a bonus for work performed on rest days or public holidays. Despite the fact that these are obligations which are stipulated in the National Labour Code. So it's mandatory for employers to pay for a paid leave for public holidays, but they don't. So 4 out of 5. 75% of employees encounter no challenges in recruiting and retaining employees. So the fact that they don't provide written labor contracts, they don't provide much social security, and they don't provide any paid leave. They don't have problems finding new employees or retaining employees. And that is something to do with the current situation at the labor market in Senegal, especially in rural areas, which is very, very hard to find paid work. Especially young people are unemployed and having not so much alternatives than work in the horticulture sector or the agriculture sector or work for this kind of training companies. So they don't have much bargaining position towards their employees. So what about horticulture households? So we ask a representative group of farm owners and plot owners. And 90% of these owners are men. And 1/3 is younger than 40. That means so 2/3 are older than 40. So you see many young farmers or young people don't go into farming for many reasons. But there's something which is a trend which is going on for several years now. Yes, there always are exceptions, but in general, young people don't go into agriculture sector and become a farmer. The majority of the farm households possess a minimal or no formal education, the owner. 85% are smallholders and managing plots of less than 5 hectares. Although many regard themselves as owners of their land, only 5% of all the farm owners, plot owners, possesses formal land ownership rights. That means that if there's a discussion or there's a dispute between, say, the government and farmers about extending a city to rural areas for urban development, for construction housing, these farm owners have little things to show why are they that they own the farm plot. Only 5% has formal land ownership rights, and that is a big problem for many of the farmers. So there's a lot of risk involved in starting to invest in a farm. 80% of owners engage paid workers, regardless of whether they are family members. So in a sense, it's the vast majority pay their workers, so that's the good news. But what they pay is below the legal minimum wage. A big number of these workers, non-family workers, are internal and external migrants, and they are primarily employed as seasonal casual laborers. And these seasonal employees typically receive monthly compensation, whereas casual workers are paid on a daily basis. And as mentioned, what they get paid for is below the legal minimum agricultural wage, which is around 36 euro cents per hour. Here, all owners are unregistered with any social security system. So their employees have no security whatsoever. There are no written contracts. There is no social security, also not for retirement. When they get sick or get injured or get something else or get fired, whatever, there are no backups. There's nothing provided by the employer. So it depends on the family members of these employees. These are two columns which you see here are on the left side, workers being interviewed at small farms and small trading companies. And on the right side, you see the result from workers being interviewed at large farms and agro processing units. And there are some differences, but in general, we see a lot of dissatisfaction among workers at both type of farms and companies about decent work. Most of them don't have a written contract. Many of them are paid below the legal minimum wage. They don't feel that they get respect from their employer. So they work really, really hard for the employer, but they don't get much in return. Professional development is not there for many of these workers. There's little to no training provided. And if there's a training, it's always about, for example, be better in your work model, be better in your work, be better in cultivating the crops, but not about marketing, for example, or personal development. That type of training is not provided at all for these type of workers. There are, in that sense, no social benefits provided by most of the employers. So if something happens, it's up to the employee work itself to cover it, or his family members. So there's no bonus paid. There are only for the big farms, workers get paid leave off. But at small farms, because they are operating primarily in the informal sector, there's nothing there. So also with union membership, with the small farms and small trading companies, it's almost non-existent. There are no representation, not only no labor unions, but there's also no staff representation at these smaller farms and trading companies. At several of the bigger companies, especially also in agriculture and horticulture, sorry. There are some exceptions, a little bit more of representation by labor union or a staff representative, like working committees. But the problem is that especially for a representative of these workers committees, they don't feel protected against the whims of an employer. So they're a little bit afraid to go too tough to defend workers' rights towards the employers, as they are afraid that they are fired immediately, and as there are not much alternatives in rural areas concerning paid work. There's not much enthusiasm for representatives to say go into tough discussions about better payments or better social benefits for workers. And there's also at large farms, and especially at smaller farms, a big problem. So only about 20% of the workers at large farms indicated that they had an active labor union within the organization, and only 1/3 of the workers at large farms affirmed that there's an existence of staff representatives to address workers' grievances. But as I mentioned before, they find it very difficult to stand up and talk, discuss openly about these grievances to the employer. So in general, most of the workers are dissatisfied with what they receive in payment, dissatisfied in how they are respected by employers, and dissatisfied in their own personal development into becoming a better worker and a better employee, or maybe if you want to, for example, set up your own business and to change your change the type of work, and there's nothing there, there's nothing provided. But these are several quotes from individual workers we collected at these large and smaller farms. As mentioned before, what we also ask is, what kind of improvements do you want to be implemented by your employer? And in general, most of the individual workers said it's about payment, about remuneration of workers, and also especially about safeguarding their rights. And that is what we, because these are several quotes, that's what we found from all workers, is that the payment and the fact that they don't have written labor contracts give them a feeling of completely that you are completely not protected, say, against the whims of the employer, and that you can be fired at any time. And if you are fired, it's very difficult to find alternative work in the rural areas. So that's why most of the workers stay at peace and say, okay, this is it. But they really want to change, but they don't know how. So these are the general conclusions of our research. So these work is defined by the ILO. Human Rights priority on Senegal's political agenda. As mentioned before, there are these two programs which was developed in the last 12 years. However, potential outcomes thus far are primarily confined to the modern non-agricultural farming sector, especially in the big cities like Dakar. The 5 horticultural subsectors are key to the socio-economic development of rural areas in Senegal. They provide many people employment and income. In general, the horticultural value chain functions informally. The employees are unregistered in both the commercial and also in the tax register. So they get unnoticed by the government. The majority of farms operate as an independent enterprise, with 45% of them belong to collective, such as a cooperative origin. Compliance with the National Labor Code is infrequent among employees. So many of them compensate their work below legal minimum wage and provide limited to no social security, like CSS or IPRES for retirement, along with few or no other social benefits, for example, for food or transport, of maternity leave, etc. Furthermore, written labor contracts are rarely provided, not only at small farms, but even at the big farms. The majority of horticultural workers are temporary, quickly seasonal or casual employees lacking adequate social and physical protection during their work activities. Many of these individuals are internal migrants, so they coming from, for example, from the south of the country, from the Casamance, and start working more in the north in the Senegal River Valley when when the season is for rice. relocate throughout the country in pursuit of gainful employment. High unemployment rates in rural areas, especially among women and young people under 25. Diminish their negotiation power with employers, secure and decent work conditions. Trade union membership, as I mentioned before, is almost limited to non-existent, and with a few exceptions, the large farms. The unions which were mentioned by the workers at large farms are CNTS, FGTS, and UDTS. Individual workers therefore had to frequently navigate negotiations with employers concerning decent work in isolation, which means they have no backup by staff representation or labor unions, which make them very vulnerable for the whims of the employer. Overall, workers in the 5 horticulture subsector convey a sense of undercompensation in relation to their work efforts, facing minimal or no legal safeguards against arbitrary employer practices, and they frequently perceive a lack of recognition and respect as professionals from their employers. Yes. There's a final slide, recommendations to CNV. So how to promote and implement this work across 5 horticulture subsectors? Well, in fact, what we're talking about is about formalizing the informal. Because when companies, organizations operating in the informal economy, they are not visible. We don't know, nobody knows, the government doesn't know, nobody knows where they are, what they are doing, what do they provide, type of contracts, what do they pay the employees, what kind of social security do they offer at all social security. So it's very difficult to check them. So registration in the commercial tax register should be mandatory for all. And in this case, if you do that, it is possibility to have good discussions with these organizations, because you see they are there, you see what they are doing, where they are located, etc. How many people are working, who are the owners of these organizations. If that's not possible, if, for example, so they are like now operating in the informal economy, it's very difficult to get into discussions with organizations which are really non-existent because they are not registered. Information regarding rights and obligations. So employers and employees must be informed by CNV and partner labor union about rights and responsibilities. So there are rights from the employers, so rights from the employees and responsibilities from the employees in accordance with the National Labor Code. Like, for example, paying above legal minimum wage, providing social security, paid leave, be registered at the retirement scheme like IPRES, social security scheme like CSS, is all mandatory. Mandatory cessation with CSS and IPRES also must be notified by CNV of legal requirements for companies to register at these 2 types of systems. And employees should be informed of their social security rights, especially regarding contribution and benefits. Enhance the visibility of unions. CNV and its partner unions should enhance the visibility among the horticulture workers by clearly articulating their role and significance of membership in safeguarding workers' rights. To do so, CNV and partner unions should establish small offices. These key horticultural regions, like the Casamance, Niai, and the Senegal River Valley, that could facilitate discussions regarding works concern and decent work conditions. Collaborate with horticulture collective associations, because it's such a big sector across the entire country. Even if you focus on these 3 regions, there's still a lot of each individual small farmers, which is very difficult to interact with each individually. So it should be better to work together with horticultural collective and associations. And there are at the national, at the regional, at the local level, many organizations active already in Senegal. For example, the AURN, the Association for the Market Gardening Horticulture in Niai, or the Federation for Market Productions in the eye, or APOV, which is Association for the Production of Onions in the Senegal River Valley. Working together with these kind of associations and collectives, you get in direct contact also with their members. So that's a good starting point for CNV and its partner union in promoting and implementing decent work. Verification of adherence to the statutory minimum wage. So in cooperation with Senegalese government, we recommend CNV and its partner union to ensure that employers adhere to the legal minimum wage, because at the moment, the vast majority doesn't do it for the employees. And conducting regular field visits to engage with both employees and employees, facilitate enforcement of these standards. And last but not least, advancing optimal horticulture practices. So we recommend it's essential to illustrate to employers that this work is advantageous for both employees and companies. So a collaborative strategy with large farm, especially those exceeding 100 hectares, in Casamance, in the eye and Senegal River Valley, would enable CNV and its partner unit to engage with employees in the implementation of these work conditions at all levels. We would recommend to refrain from naming and shaming tactics, as we think it would prove be counterproductive. We think it's better to have a constructive approach. So I think also more effective in promoting, implementing decent work across the 5 horticultural subsectors. So thank you for your attention, and back to you, Francisca.
Yes, thank you very much, Marco. Much appreciated. A lot of information shared. Anyone who is interested in receiving the report or the audio from this webinar or the slides, you will have a mail afterwards from us to direct you to find all of this information. So now we're open to receiving questions and also any contributions you want to make. I guess we have a lot of people present who are also active in the horticulture sector or in Senegal. So we welcome your questions. I suppose you can raise your hand. If I do gallery view, yes. Open your mic and ask your question. Anyone who would want to ask a question in the chat, that is also possible. So it can be a question, of course, about the study to our consultants who are present with us, or any questions to CNV about our interventions or thoughts on that. So, anyone? Yes, Jeroen.
Yes, good afternoon. I was a little bit later in the presentation, and my compliments for this presentation and your activities in Senegal. I'm also from the FFV, the union official for agriculture. So we have also other projects with FFA Mondial, and I'm very happy to hear that. And I have one question, because we have now a new guideline, the European guideline for CRD. So I think it's also a big change, a challenge for us, and also an option for us to have also strengthen our union in the European Union, but also worldwide, and also the unions in Senegal to support them about living wage and to improve the working conditions. I was a little bit later, but is this also a part and also an opportunity for you for this project, the CRD policy, also for the seed business, also for the horticulture business? So how it's compliant with this? So this was my question.
Thank you, Jeroen. So I guess this is a question for consultants as for CNV, right? Yes, certainly this is a huge opportunity for us, the CSDD European guidelines. And we also look at our work from that angle and how we can prepare partners in Senegal or any countries we work in for this regulation that is coming up or is already being prepared. So especially when there is linkage with European markets, Dutch markets, right? So we have already done some human rights due diligence training with our trade unions to prepare on the conversation that will come up So how can trade unions position themselves to really make an effort and impact on making business more sustainable and complying to new regulations? Yes. Thank you for the question. Anna, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot for the presentation. I'm still struggling to find the language as well, but hopefully it will do for now. I was wondering if for Marco, could you please tell me a little bit more on European businesses in horticulture, like the link with European or Dutch businesses and how they engage there? Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a good question, Anne. So the main export products of the horticulture sector from Senegal are to the Netherlands, or Europe, but we focus now on the Netherlands, are green beans, mangoes, and also cashew nuts, although cashew nuts also go with a roundabout through Asia to Europe, because then they are processed. And tomatoes. And finally, also onions, but then not much. So primarily, we focus on the green beans and the mangoes. And what we noticed that the topic of decent work is quite a delicate topic to be discussed by importers. I found that strange because they all say we are doing our best in Senegal. At the same time, they want to be completely anonymous in what they are telling us, if they want to tell us, because many of them we contacted didn't want to talk to us. So that is a little bit of an issue in the sense that it was very difficult to get Dutch importing companies behind the microphone. Yeah, there are limited numbers, so there are not many importing companies, Dutch importing companies, from importing horticulture products from Senegal. So companies who we talk to, they all abide by EU regulations. And when they look at decent work and living wage, they have a little bit of a different discussion, different approach of what it is. They say when we can offer, for example, permanent contracts or contracts for at least 10 months a year, because many of them are not only producing green beans, so they work together with large farms. So they only not doing green beans, but also mangoes, etc. So they have, say, a production cycle of at least 10 months. So we provide contracts for 10 months, which is already more than what's normal in Senegal, because what I said is primarily seasonal or temporary work. So that's about 3 or 4 months. We offer them a contract for 10 months. We invest in their village. We provide all kinds of social benefits. That's for us more than enough. That's how we perceive this work. So a little bit a different approach they take than say, this is the living wage, it has to be that number. So it's more like a package they provide to their workers, instead of saying, well, we have to pay twice the legal minimum wage for a number of months or a number of weeks. So they say, well, we provide a package including a longer type of contract, and which is normal in the market in Senegal.
Okay, thank you, Marco. Yeah. I see another. Yeah, thank you very much, Marco. I see another hand raised from iPhone Buza. No name. Maybe you can introduce yourself. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. It's Elise Antoine from the Dutch Embassy, economic advisor in Senegal. Thank you, Marco, for the presentation and the information shared. Really important for us at the embassy, of course, to have those info. And it's my question is linked to the previous question, so it's a good bridge, I think, regarding the private sector, because we also work with them a lot at the embassy level. You mentioned some of them in the recommendation, and we were a bit skeptical about it, as you mentioned now that they were not so easy to approach, etc. So we were wondering did you request them to agree to be named as in the recommendation? Do you think that they will be open for dialogue? What's the follow-up for the recommendation? Because to be honest, I really looked at this part because I think that for the information part, we are at the embassy level, we are quite aware of the situation is, but we are really interested on how to improve it with you and CNV. So yes, the question is mainly related to the big companies' name, also Dutch companies involved, and how did they agree to be named? And yeah, how to make this a step further in the recommendation part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elise. Yes. So maybe, Marco, you want to respond? Okay, go ahead.
No problem. Thank you, Elise. Good question. So, no, anonymous. So we promised anonymous to all our respondents, individual workers as well as the employers, because also many individual workers are, not all, but many are reluctant to talk openly about decent work and decent work conditions. And that's what I said, is all has to do with the fact that there are not many alternatives, especially not in rural areas, to have a paid work. So they are really afraid that if something comes out, they get fired if it's linked to, for example, to what they said. Regarding the employers, so we talked to workers at several big farms in Senegal, and those names are mentioned in the report. So workers at these big farms also have what we thought more protection, but it's not the case. So also they are confronted with lack of written labor contracts, lack of social benefits. Yes, there's a little bit more of representation by labor union or working committees, but at the end of the day, these working conditions, even at the big farms in the north and in the south and in near TS, they didn't pick up the telephone, unfortunately. These conditions are not much better. And so these are farms exporting also to the Netherlands. So that's what I say about this Dutch importing company. They say we define a living wage differently than, for example, point a number to it. So it's more like a package. That's what they informed us. You look at more like a package. But if you talk to individual workers at these farms, they want especially a higher wage, because that's the main issue they discussed with us, what they said to us. So at the end of the day, it's especially about two things. What they're looking for is higher wages and a written labor contract, which is connected more to social security. Because now they feel they are completely unprotected against whatever decision is made by the employer.
Yeah. Maybe I can also add to it. It is not uncommon that companies are a little hesitant to receive CNV Internationaal or researchers from us who are connected to the trade union or the labor union. So our approach, we always say, is really to look for possibilities to have a constructive and inclusive social dialogue. So like Marco said also at the end, we are not looking for shaming and blaming or telling everything that is wrong. We know that there are issues, we know that there are challenges, and everybody is aware of it. It's just we are willing to find a way, how can we improve this together? So we are absolutely, there's also a question in the chat on what is the chance of social dialogue in horticulture in Senegal. I think that is a question for all of us who are active in Senegal. How can we improve on social dialogue in Senegal in the horticulture sector? Because I think that is a really good entry point to discuss issues like this from the employer side as from the employee side. Include workers and employers in social dialogue to address those issues from both sides and come to agreements, collective agreements. Okay, Dick de Graaf. Yes, FNV Netherlands, please.
Thank you, Francisca. The question about the social dialogue was mine. So
good. Yeah.
I was just wondering, also within the FNV, we have great emphasis on social dialogue in different countries. And in the agricultural sector, it's very difficult. Well, Jeroen might know about it himself, but might it not be a start to address the Dutch companies involved if they are willing, together with the embassy and the Dutch government, to start a kind of social dialogue? In the report, it was mentioned Rijkswaan as one of the seed suppliers. That was a name given in the report. Not a name which is very important, which is not given in the report, but easily to find out via the internet, is Beemsterboer or JPB. It's one of the major importance in Holland of agricultural products from all over the world, and they are also active in Senegal, especially in the onion sector. So is it possible for the CNV to address these companies in Holland if they are willing to start a social dialogue in Senegal with their embassies? That's my question.
Yes. Well, it's a very good question, and I would like to say yes, we are ready and willing to, to have this conversation. We absolutely do. Yes. We also have, of course, colleagues in the Netherlands, like Anne, our lobbyist, and someone who's on responsible business conduct. Who can open this dialogue. We are absolutely in favor of it and are actually looking for it. So yes, we do. If you want to, you can ook praten. Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. Marjolein is also saying that we, yes, I can mention PUM. So we are in collaboration with PUM, which is the employer organization, the Dutch NGO who works with employer organizations also in Western Africa and in South Africa. So together with PUM, we are involved in strengthening social dialogue on a sectoral level, like on the cashew in Ivory Coast, and then for the horticulture in Senegal, and then also for the cashew in Benin. Especially this question on how can we improve social dialogue on a sectoral level, where employers and employees both are involved in discussing the challenges in the sector, to find a way of collaboration, right, for improving all of those issues that have been mentioned in the study, to find a point of where can we work together to improve on the situation. Thank you for that. Okay.
Can I ask something too? Good morning.
Yes, please. Good morning. Yes.
Good morning. This is Ben Kubinga from Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, but I'm the agriculture counselor from the Ministry of Agriculture, who's also responsible for Senegal, and hence today in the call. So thank you for a very nice presentation with a lot of useful facts that I think in summary do not surprise us, as my colleague Elise mentioned it as well, but still good to have more details on those. Perhaps to build on her question regarding the Dutch companies, I wanted to check if they agree with the fact that they're named in the report simply. So a very basic question, but just to be sure that's the case. The second one is regarding all the recommendations, or most of them that I saw on the slide. It says CNV and the union to in that order as well, to operate together. And I was wondering if that's indeed strategic, or if a more cautious approach would be good, where it's more the union with CNV support in the background. That would be wiser in the political context of Senegal to operate. And talking about unions, and that's the third and last question from my side, I was wondering, because you mentioned the UDTS that you know that you work with. I can imagine that there's others as well that you know that you've been in touch with, but I didn't see it coming back in the presentation. So I was wondering, what is the union landscape like, and can you, in terms of steps forwards, in terms of next steps, also think of a way to engage those instead of only working with UDTS? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question, for all the interest. We are working with the trade unions in West Africa, and we have a hands-on experience in involving trade unions in discussions with enterprises to improve working conditions. And as Francisca told earlier, we are also in partnership with firms. And in the frame of this partnership, we already conducted a retail workshop in Africa with both patronat and trade union, and we are about to set a social dialogue program, common social dialogue program. So we know that it will not be easy, but we are getting prepared to do it, and we already plan also a workshop with all the stakeholders involved in the sector to discuss the results of our study and to jointly develop strategies to improve the situation. As far as the names of the enterprises involved in this study, we should be very cautious, prudent. Okay? Yeah, because as you get from the presentation, most of those big leaders are those who mostly respect working conditions, working conditions. Although although there are also some rooms of improvement. Okay, if we name them, if we don't name them carefully, we can give a wrong impression on what they are already doing. Okay, so I don't know if also from ethical point of view, if it will be wise to name the enterprises that are involved in the study. But you're right. For the next steps, we will have the names of Dutch companies that are operating in the sector. We do not have this just because we need to cooperate with them to use their best practices elsewhere, and then to also support them, cooperate with them to improve the situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Latifu. I hope you all could have followed his intervention. So we have prepared at the end also a response to Ben is what would be our next steps, right? And how we go approach it. Yes. So yes, the approach, trade union CNV, we have a long-standing history with UDTS, and we will certainly continue with them. But we will also invite other partners in our approach. And depending on interest of different stakeholders, we are open. We are open to broaden our perspectives to that. And of course, maybe it's wiser to be more in the background than in the forefront. It's a good question. We will find out. We will find out. Thank you very much. Okay.
To also
yes.
make some clear about the question about Ben, about the names of Dutch companies.
Yes.
Report. These are more placed in a context. So there are these companies like Rijkswaan were not interviewed. So what we place them in the context, in the broader context of the horticultural sector itself. So all the rest is anonymous. All employers we interviewed are anonymous, but we're not. They are local companies. So not like a Dutch, like a Rijkswaan or a BEO or whatever, East West Seas or whatever. To be clear.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Marco. Okay, we are arriving a little bit at the end of our time. Is there anyone else who would have a contribution or a question? If not, we have provided a final word with Marjolein to have a look at what are our next steps, right, after this study and the results of the study. How will we approach the next steps? So maybe Marjolein.
So what will be the next steps? Well, we've seen that the sector is not that, it's a complicated sector to work on if we speak about labor rights and labor conditions. but not impossible. And there's a lot at stake for Senegal, for Senegalese workers, for companies. So also for Dutch companies having a commercial link and interest in Senegal. And also, well, our government is very much interested in this sector, the horticulture sector. And there are also programs now, the combination program, which supports this working together, collaboration between different stakeholders, different actors, to improve this horticulture sector. Next week, we will be in Senegal for 10 days. We will also participate in the Dutch fair, which is organized by the Dutch embassy in Dakar. And well, in this framework, in this context of our visit, we are organizing first a 2-day workshop with national stakeholders in Senegal to verify, to validate the study, to obtain more information, more critical information, which will nourish our knowledge about the sector and its status, and the possibilities to set up a program in Senegal. After this 2-day workshop, we will have a final presentation on the 29th of October, also supported by the Dutch embassy. And here we will present, Marco and Ndiaye will Nafifu will present the results of this study, but also we will present the findings of the 2-day workshop. We hope that through these different activities, we can build up alliances and a network which may help to set up a very productive program in Senegal. So this is it for now. It is a start of building up relationships, and we thank you all who have been participating for your questions, your remarks, your critical observations. It is all a very useful input for us. We're open for any collaboration, any suggestions. We think we have to work together, as in West Africa is a good expression, on est ensemble, and that's how we feel. Together we have to work on this and make it a success. I want to thank you as participants. I want to thank Marco for his presentation, the translator, Angèle, and Leon, our technician. Thank you very much, and hope to see you again in the next meeting, in a live meeting or online. As said by Francisca, you will all receive the recordings of this online meeting and also all slides which have been presented. If you have any doubts, any questions, please contact us, and we're happy to be in touch. Thank you very much.
So bye, everyone.